Hello, everyone. It's Zara Altair with Actation Now, and this is the Midweek Zap. And today's guest is Glenn Jewett, and we're going to be talking about sales and getting to the close. I want to thank you all. I'm sorry we were a little late. We had a last-minute tech detail to conquer. So, Glenn, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you very much. Mostly it applies to today. I've been in sales for about 40 years. I've probably greeted 10,000 people, asked them what they want to try to get to the end of the sale. So there's a lot of experience.
That's really great. And we have a comment from the audience, and that is from Barbara Quick. And she says, "Hi, Glenn. After reading your PDF, I feel what you said fits more with a store salesman than with an online entrepreneur. Everything I see, hear, and read seems to take a whole new, unique approach online. Or perhaps because you have a sales background, you are able to make it work for you online too." Excuse me.
Well, the answer here is there's a process. Now, I was trying to figure whether to focus on simply the online sales, but that usually tends to be a commodity. It's not involved. And then I started to think that, well, a lot of people are selling their services as either AdWords consultants, website people, and all of those things are more or less a person kind of sale. If we wanted to talk about just how to create a website facilitates the sale, that's a slightly different focus.
Okay, I think too, actually our conversation when we first started talking about doing this HOA was the difference between marketing and sales. And so I think for Barbara, a lot of that information that you're seeing is actually about marketing. And the marketing that you do online drives people, that's its intent, is to drive people to get in touch with you to make the sale and close the sale. It's extraordinarily rare to actually go through the actual sales process online through social media. So one of the reasons that we decided to do this particular session was to distinguish between marketing and sales. The sales, and that's why I called it the end game today, is all the marketing has led them. There aren't very many more questions left. There aren't a lot of pieces on the board anymore. They're getting in touch with you and they have questions about what it is you have to offer. And so today we're focusing on the sale itself. Now, with the tools that we have online, like Hangouts, where you can have private conversations with people, it's that sales process is going to happen online through a Hangout, for instance, and it's still one-to-one and it's still closing the sale. So we're going to talk today about the sales process itself. And we've done plenty of marketing here on the Midweek Zap. Today we're talking about the end game, actually making the sale. So thank you so much for that question, Barbara, because it's something that people do a lot. They confuse the two things. So we wanted to make it really clear today. This is the end game. They've read your marketing, they've bought in, and now they're ready to buy your service or your products. So thank you very much for bringing that up. It's a really important distinction, I think. Now, Glenn, we have another question for you, and that is from Midweek. There are lots of concepts which handle human behavior, but how much of it can be used in online communications and specifically in an HOA? Any specific concepts that translate directly?
Well, in an HOA, it's essentially the same thing. It's face-to-face. We're just not in the same physical location. So when marketing gets done, all that means you've been selected as the final set of choices. They have two or three vendors in mind. And so when the contact begins, then that is a sales process. And the first thing to do there is to qualify. So you want to find out, especially through open questions. You don't ever want to ask a question with yes or no. Because you encourage them to open up and tell you exactly what it is to define what solution they need, and very quickly decide whether you can provide it. Because you don't want to waste time selling when you can't produce that solution. So figuring out what somebody's looking for, and they don't often tell you. It's that's why the analogy that I used the piece were mostly about face-to-face sales, but it's the same kind of thing. People will not just say, "This is what I'm looking for." They'll say, "Well, I saw your barking stuff, your present, and I think you might be able to help." Well, how can I help you? And a process that has to be done as far as setting people at ease and making them open up about what it is they need. And once you do that, then you also have to figure out and find what the budget is. Because sometimes you're not going to be able to get to that budget. And
I think you need to do that. Get that pretty straight right at the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to spin a lot of wheels. It's like, what's your budget for this? So instead of telling them the price, you ask what's your budget, because that's going to give you a lot of information. And if their budget doesn't fit what your pricing structure is, then it's time to send them somewhere else.
And you gain credibility by referring them. Then they think, oh, he's not just trying to sell me something. He's actually going to try and help me out.
Right.
Is good in the long run, because you never know when they're going to come back and want something that you have.
Glenn, I need to interrupt for a second. We need to deal with a technical issue. People are having trouble understanding you because your voice is still garbled. If you could go up and bring down your bandwidth just a little bit more, please.
How about that?
So far, so good.
Okay. We're in a very low category.
Right. Okay, and then Midweek has another question for you, and that is, I think the main purpose of marketing is creating awareness, whereas the main purpose of sales is converting prospects into clients. Should happen after awareness has already been created.
That's 100% right. It's in my analogy, I talked about how advertising and marketing is a cost. And it causes someone to actually come into contact. So if it's not focused correctly, then you're attracting the wrong clients. But if it's working right, then you're talking to someone that can actually help out and provide service too.
Right. We're still getting an echo.
How much lower can I go?
So I don't know. Do you happen to have a set of earphones or something from the phone? Sorry, folks. We tried fixing this in the green room, but obviously it didn't work. So Midweek, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for really stating clearly about the difference between the marketing, getting them to you, and the sales, getting them to buy, because I think that's a very important.
Can you hear this at all?
Point. Yeah, keep talking. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So
how about audience?
Yeah, the whole thing about the marketing and sales, it's a different thing. Marketing creates an awareness of you, who you are, what you provide. But sales is making the case that you are the one person or one solution they need. And if you let someone leave with the rock then God will never see them again. So the whole purpose of the sale is to take advantage of that opportunity. And so that's getting them comfortable, getting them to talk to you, because once they do that, the brain has time to begin to analyze the benefits, and then you can talk about exactly what do I need to get this sale. And that's overcoming objections. People will have questions in their minds. They haven't answered all of them. Then they find a difficult decision. And so you have to identify what the objections are and to answer them correctly and fully.
And how would you go about doing that to make sure you've covered all the bases with someone?
Well, during the conversation, and you definitely want to make sure to keep the client talking more than you are. You want to find out exactly what it is they're looking for, what they need. And then when you come back with what you're proposing, you go through and build a series of agreements. Small yes. So you ask a question, correct? And is this what you're looking for? And as long as you can build a series of yes response, then it becomes more and more difficult to say no. Because you've already got an agreement at each step along the way.
Okay. I think as audience, I'm really sorry. We now have earbuds in place, and I understand there's still some garbling and echoing. So Glenn, just for the purpose of the show, maybe you can speak a little bit more slowly and clearly than normal, because I think it's a tech issue.
We'll try our best.
Why do you have the event page open on your computer? Well, why don't you try closing that and see if that'll help?
Okay. Is that any better?
It is to me. How about audience? We need some tech feedback here.
I forget about that.
Yeah, it still drops. Okay, I have from Frank Gainsford. I have, at the end of the day, the purpose of marketing is to generate sales. Marketing supplies the information that the client needs to decide whether she will buy from you or somebody else. So, and I think that's right, Frank, and we touched on that. Okay. So
See,
thanks.
I don't think it provides all the information that they need. It just gets you to the playoff.
Right, exactly. What was your next point?
Well, once they've eliminated, say you've got 10 different choices to go to for a solution. Now they break it down. Okay, I'm going to go to this place or this place and find out the differences in what they're offering. And at that point, you have to distinguish yourself from the competition. And it's a little more specific than most marketing for you. And that's when you need to find out from the client exactly what it is they're looking for, what they're hoping to accomplish. And then you answer all of those concerns. That's when they feel more confident in the decision. If it happens in a rare case, someone just calls and says, you know, I want this. Do it for me. But it's rare. You know, they want to hear what the cost will be, and what the time frame, and what your experience is. So it's not. We used to call the other type of client a lay down, where you just wrote the order.
Right. Those are wonderful. Glenn, let's see if we can conquer the technical issue, and that would be to go out of the Hangout and then grab that link that I sent you earlier and come back in again.
All right.
Okay. So thank you everyone for your patience. And I want to thank particularly Molly Youngblood Geiger and Karen Chen for helping. Thanks so much. Okay, while we're waiting for Glenn to come back, if the audience could give us some more questions, that would be really great. This is because I think this is such an important subject, and the distinguishing between the two. Here he is.
Is this any better?
It is. It is. Okay, audience. All right, Glenn, what was your next topic? We got down to the lay down.
Okay, and we talked establishing value. So then we come down to basically the close. And there's a couple of ways to start. You can do an assumptive close, which means that you just assume you're ready to write the order all up. And so you start to go through whatever service you're going to provide, look up and kind of get, confirmation. The other one, there's all kinds of the either or is start this week. We want us to start us the first of the month. There's what have I answered all of your questions? Is there anything?
I need to stop you again, and could you try turning your speakers way down your on the computer? Because it's coming through the earbuds and the speakers.
Let's see. Okay. Is that any better?
Okay, so that sounds better to me, but let's hear what the audience has to say. I really apologize, folks.
No problem.
Okay, go on with the close now.
So you can just kind of assume what is already taken place and start to write it up. Well, if they don't stop you from, writing it up, then you're done. The other one is if there's some hesitancy, well, have I answered all of your questions? Is there anything else that you'd like to know, or shall we just schedule this now? So you can go back and go to the objections kind of stage if you think that there's still some hesitation. And there's even the times when you've said, well, what do I need to do, to make you decide? And when price comes up, which it usually will do, and people say, well, could you do this for a little less? That's kind of more than I wanted to spend. You don't want to negotiate price particularly. Usually what I'd like to do is go through and say, well, this is what we're going to do for you. And now we could take out this part, and that would cut some of the expense. But rather than saying, well, sure, let's just, instead of $1,000, we could do it for $800. Well, then they're thinking, but could he do it for $600? So you don't want to undermine yourself by just immediately giving a discount. And you can always go back and differentiate yourself. Well, if you've heard of an offer that's less than this, then you have to look and see whether you're getting all of the services that I'm going to provide. So you kind of hold your line on the price, and because that's a one-shot gun. Once you do that, there's nothing else left. So you kind of hold that back, and once that's the absolute last thing that you can do to get the deal done right then. If it's a matter of dollars and cents, and that's all it takes to get the signature on the deal, then that's up to you whether your margin can maintain it. But to start out with price negotiation is a poor tactic, because it just leads to continuing negotiation at every step of the way. Is the voice coming across better?
Yes, much better. It's much better, and people are appreciating it. So thank you. And then if I just like to be clear about stuff, so if you could explain for people who are totally new to this whole process, what is the margin?
A margin. The margin is the difference in the price that you're charging versus your cost. So everybody has overhead. And so for instance, as an online service provider, you've got your internet, you've got your phones, you've got whatever marketing use. All of this feeds into a basic price you have to cover every so especially if you're going to be using a particular product for someone. Say you're a website designer, and you have to pick a theme from WordPress. Well, there's free themes, and then there's themes that charge per license, or multiple licenses. So there's a cost involved. So the difference between all of your total costs and the price you're charging is your margin.
Okay, thank you very much. I just like to make sure that everybody understands terms when we're talking. So, and sound is much better, and Molly has posted 2 reasons. So thank you, Molly. Let's just throw this up here for a second. To all watching, if you ever encounter an echo, there are 1 of 2 reasons why. Speakers are turned on, event page is open. Have your guest check these 2 settings, and that should do the trick. And we have those things done, but Karen is telling us that the echo is back. So at this point, I don't know how we can resolve that. All right. Okay, so let's just continue on, and people just bear with us. I'm so sorry.
I haven't run into this problem before.
Okay. And then David Leopold is just confirming what you said. I've used your what's your budget approach over the years, especially when selling services. Yes, I have to agree. What's your budget? It just clears the deck right away. Either they're ready for your price range, or they're not. And I think if they're not in your price range, the best way is to send them, have a useful suggestion of where they can go to meet their needs. Because haggling over price, I just have to agree with Glenn. Price is not the issue. We're talking about the value of your services or your product. And that is really the main point, is the value. Does the value meet their needs? Is that am I correct, Glenn?
Well, there's also the pesky little question of are they being honest with you when you ask what their budget is. So sometimes you have to probe a little bit and say, well, for that, we could do this. But if you want to do this, then that would be more. And find out if they have interest in, or whether it's like, no, this is all I've got to spend. And if that's the case, then you either offer the shortened, condensed version of what you have, or you simply refer them someplace else.
Okay, and I know that you have much more, so let's keep refining on the close, because I think this is really important. This is like, you know,
a lot of people ask, when do I close? And the answer to that is, as soon as you feel that you've answered all the questions and presented your proposal. And so it's kind of a series of tentative closes, because you try to close, and if there's resistance, then you go, okay, well, you know, what was your other questions? Shall we go through this again? And you make your points, you establish your value, and if there's still a resistance to you know, shaking hands and saying, yeah, we've got a deal, then find out why. What's keeping them back? So there's that tentative close, which is kind of really just inviting more questions. And then there's the make a decision close, which you know that you've answered everything, and you know that there's nothing else to go over. Because the last thing you want is for someone to go, okay, well, I have you know, your number, I'll get back to you. That's just turning them loose to be in touch with someone else. And it may be that after 3 different interviews with people, they'll just go with the last person they talked to rather than calling back someone else. It's like, okay, each one of these is all pretty much the same. I'll just do it here. So instead, you try and at least get the momentum in your own favor. you know your market, you know what your product is, you know what the competition sells it for. So if you're all in the same kind of price neighborhood, and that's not the question, then find out what's keeping someone from making up their mind. Is it they don't know enough about you? You know, what is it they've still got keeping them from saying, okay, let's go ahead, let's do this?
Wait, I have to share from Midweek. I studied a submarine approach. You take the prospect through various airlocks of the submarine, and after you cross one, the prospect can't go back because that compartment is flooded with water. You essentially take them through a journey, and in the end, they become your client, and together you attack your enemy using the submarine. That is a wonderful metaphor. Thank you so much, Midweek.
That's like getting those small agreements along the way.
Exactly.
Once you've gotten them to take yes, and they've accepted that part of the presentation, it's hard to go back and reopen it again. It's also kind of the either or kind of close too. Well, would you like to do this or this? Either answer is good, but you limit the choices to one or two.
Right. And then Molly Youngblood Geiger has some interesting points, especially for services. Charge what you are worth and tell your clients that you are worth every penny. Instead of lowering your price to work with their budget, offer them flexible payment terms. This has been the strategy that has done the trick. I come up with an estimate of the project, start with a retainer, come up with a comfortable monthly payment that works with their budget, then have them pay down the balance. Yes, it's a little more work, but it creates a win-win as opposed to, no, I can't afford you. Thank you, Molly. That's just really terrific.
It's very effective also. If a large initial payout is difficult, certainly if you can manage to take your payment over time, it's wonderful flexibility. It feels like you're working hard to work with them, and it helps. It's a win-win all the way around.
And then Molly has another great point, and that is also remember this: qualify your clients the same way they qualify you. Whoops, why am I? We're in the wrong. Here we go. Remember, qualify your clients the same way they qualify you. And I think that's a good point to remember, is that all the time you're qualifying them, they are qualifying you. And so I think that all of the closing techniques that Glenn is suggesting here today really help overcome those qualifying qualifiers that the client is looking at when they're looking at you. Great point, Molly. Thank you very much.
I think Molly's done some sales.
Yeah. She has. Wait. Okay. Keep going while I figure out where Molly went. Here we go. Okay, so we have probably time for one last concept, Glenn, on closing, because we're coming to the end of our time.
Very good. The last thing is that once you have a sale, always follow through, even if fulfillment is not your job. Make sure that you stay in touch with the customer. Check on the progress. Make sure that they're well informed, because this is where you build the trust and everything that you can begin to receive referrals. And especially if you do this well, the best way to get a referral is not to simply say, well, I hope you'll refer me to, your friends or your fellow businessmen, but ask for a name, ask for a contact, take charge of that referral so that you can call and say, well, George Smith gave me your name and thought that I might be able to help you out. The other part of that is, though, that I never take someone in the same vertical or the same kind of occupation in the same geographic area. It's asking for trouble. So be careful about referrals. It's like working for one business across the street from another. And if you're more successful with a campaign for somebody else, then the first guy thinks, well, you didn't work as hard for him as you did for the guy across the street. So you try to isolate who you're working with in a geographic area. But referrals are key, and that usually happens by staying in touch, making sure that they're happy with your services, that you've fulfilled everything. If there's a delay that's coming up, make sure that you let them know in advance so that they're not caught by surprise. And that's the care after the sale. And it just builds your whole referral network that way.
I think that's especially true for anyone who provides services that, and if you're working on retainer and you're doing ongoing, that it's really important to keep in touch with your clients and set up some kind of either formal or informal reporting to them, so that you're saying, okay, this month we did this. Even if it seems really boring to you, what it means to the client is that you're taking care of them and you're paying attention to their needs and what your service, and you're reinforcing it, and you're reinforcing your service at the same time. If that makes sense. So it's a dual purpose. And the more that you do that, the more, not only can you ask for referrals, but also that word of mouth builds. And we haven't really mentioned that a lot, just natural word of mouth, but it does happen. And that is definitely something that does happen online, going back to the very beginning of our session today, talking about, online and being in sales and closing the sale is, when you've closed the sale and you've provided service and you've taken care of your client all along as you're providing the service, that is really when word of mouth comes into play. Word of mouth isn't necessarily going to happen right after the sale when you're providing a service. But if you're ongoing providing your service and treating your clients well, they are going to provide word of mouth verification. And then Peter Hatherley has something that he's shared with us, and that is decisions can happen on a micro level. So in some cases, your client has closed before we have. So being observant is the key. For me, I prefer the open relationship. I do too, Peter. Thank you very much.
It's one of the reasons I like video conferencing. It's very important. It's kind of like agile marketing. In the sales situation, you have to be very alert, because if someone has already made up their mind, you don't want to keep on selling. You just want to go ahead and take advantage right then, because I've seen it actually go in reverse. If you keep on trying to convince them and their mind is already made up. I mean, Peter's got an excellent point there. You have to be very observant and aware of the situation as it goes along.
That's so true, because once that person has closed in their mind, if you keep going you can actually lose the sale that you had already won. So I think it's really important to stay in tune with how people are responding and how that one-on-one, whether it's face-to-face or video conferencing, using private HOs here, however you do your sales closing, that you really need to pay attention to where that other person is, because if you ignore that they're already ready, you can lose them. And I've seen it happen to people, you know, that they're not picking up on the clues and they keep talking as though they're still trying to bring them on board, and the person is already on board, and all of a sudden they tune out and they're gone. So it's something really important. And then following up on that, boy, Ruwek is really jumping into this conversation today. Ruwek says, aha, salesman losing interest after selling to me has been one of my worst experiences so far with salesmen. After selling it to me, he did not bother to check whether it was even delivered and did not check if I paid for it. Needless to say, I canceled the order and blacklisted the salesman. Follow-up is very important, but forgotten by big companies mostly. Thank you, Ruwek. That is so true. That's just so true, and it's so important when we are solopreneurs and small business people that we really follow up with the people who come on board with us.
Sometimes you forget because it's not like a new income stream. You just kind of are still searching. But you have to remember to go back and make sure that you've left a happy client. And that requires touching base with them often and repeatedly throughout the delivery and the use even. I've called people back 6 months later. Is everything working for you? Are you still happy, or is there something I can do to improve it? And that makes all the difference in the world. My average client has been with me at least 8 years.
Glenn, I want to thank you for being here with us. We've come to the end of our time. I gave us a little scooch room because we had so much problem with sound earlier, but we really need to close. And so I want to thank you very much. Thank you, Zapster audience. A lot of great comments and questions, and there are even more in the comment stream. So I want to thank you. And I would like to encourage everybody who came to the show today to talk with each other about sales and closing, because it's so important to the health of our business. So thank you once again, Zapsters, for contributing and also for your tech support today. All right. Thank you, and we'll see you next week. Yes.